Could we see a blockbuster trade this offseason involving Oilers superstar Leon Draisaitl, or better yet, when he becomes a free agent in the next offseason, would he possibly be interested in going to San Jose? We're going to discuss these reports and what's led to it, how logical and possible is it, and if he did get traded, what would it look like going back to Edmonton? We'll discuss all that and more coming up next. Welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned today, we're talking about the recent rumors about top superstar of the Edmonton Oilers, Leon Draisaitl. Now, Leon, of course, is in the midst of a playoff battle here with his teammates, so certainly as I record this video, the Oilers and Canucks are in the series getting ready for Game 6. It's 3-2 series lead for Vancouver. The Oilers do need to win the next two to win the series, and statistically and historically speaking, that is going to be a very tough thing for them to accomplish, but I do think it's possible that they could. So at the end of the day, I think the playoff success this season will have an impact on these future decisions around what Leon's future holds. Now, of course, Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid are both not all that far away from needing new contracts. They've both had phenomenal careers, and they can both command top dollar. That much we do know, and we certainly understand that. I don't think anybody will dispute that fact. I mean, the fact, the money they can command, it will be challenging for the Edmonton Oilers to be able to sign them both to what they can certainly, consider fair market value and surround them with sufficient depth to be cup contenders. We've seen it time after time. It's really challenging. Look at the Toronto Maple Leafs, for example. They've got all that money invested in their top four forwards, and time again, they've fallen short because they've really don't have sufficient depth around them. And at times, those guys have let them down. And what we saw in Game 5 of the Oilers-Canucks series, it was actually the Oilers' depth that scored some of the goals, and the top guys seemed to struggle and have a tough night. So it's hard to balance that out. It doesn't matter what team you are. So there's been some recent chatter about the future of Leon Draisaitl. And this came up actually on the Jeff Merrick show when he was talking with ESPN reporter Greg Wyshynski. Wyshynski makes regular appearances on the Merrick Show once a week, and they got talking about it. Now, of course, this is all just speculation, and this may not lead to anything, but there was before this, because this was just back last week when I was listening to them have this conversation, and then wasn't that long before that, there was reports about Leon and the Boston Bruins, and all of the reports were that if Draisaitl were to leave Edmonton, that the Boston team would be a very attractive option for him, and that there were some people that claimed to have, inside knowledge that that's a place he would consider going if it ever came to that. And then the reports from Merrick and Wyshynski in San Jose just kind of made things more interesting, and we don't really have anything suggesting that Leon wants out of Edmonton. So I want to make that clear. We're not saying that. However, when teams don't win, changes come. Players sometimes get frustrated, want to try something different. Teams sometimes get frustrated and want to try something different. And like I said, from a cap perspective and just, filling out your roster and having deep depth to be able to win, it might be challenging, unless they're willing to take less money. That's going to be hard to do because they can both command big money. So on the Merrick show, Greg Wyshynski asked Jeff Merrick if he ever had heard about Leon wanting to go to San Jose. Because the owner of the Sharks is German, Leon Draisaitl is German, and there's been some rumblings that because of that would be an attractive place for him. Merrick said that he's heard those whispers for about the past year. So, certainly interesting. I mean, like I said, he's a pending unrestricted free agent after next year. So as of July 1st, he could negotiate a contract extension to stay in Edmonton. And it's possible that they do that. Now, McDavid's contract expires not too long after that, so they got to factor in what Connor's going to likely want or need on his next deal when they're negotiating with Leon. I'm sure the Oilers have every intention to try to keep the dynamic duo. They're two of the greatest players in the world. Why wouldn't you want to do that? Of course. However, thinking about why Leon might like San Jose. Well, just because the owner shares the same nationality as him, I don't really see that as being reason enough to want to go there. I mean, that seems a little bit silly to me, and I don't think from Leon's perspective, he seems like a hyper-competitive player. All things aside, the San Jose Sharks are not exactly, bursting down the doors and trying to win a Stanley Cup right now. Now, down the road, that could change. But if you look at it from the perspective of they've been bad for a while, they probably would. And this is, if he did go to San Jose, it would have to be as a free agent. They're not going to be able to make a trade for Leon. There's no way they'd have the assets to intrigue the Oilers to even think about it. So it would be in 2 years' time. So one more off season from now, before that could happen. So at that point, why would he want to go there? Well, for starters, they're going to have tons of cap space. He would not have to take a haircut on his pay. He would not have to take a hometown discount. They could overpay to bring him to San Jose. Sure, maybe there's a connection with the German owner. They could pay him top dollar. He would not have to play, a role of being the second best player on the team. I know for some people it's an ego thing. I'm not saying that it is for him, but for some, that's important. Of course, they have been accumulating a good group of young players. They're about to draft Macklin Celebrini. They've got Will Smith coming. William Eklund's really good, and they're bound to get a few more between this year and next year's draft. It would be a pretty good, solid group of young players to build around him, and it would allow them to accelerate their rebuild by bringing in a superstar like Leon Draisaitl. Now, I guess if for some reason the Oilers can't come back and beat the Canucks, for some people looking at a second round, let's say Game 7 loss and then round 2, it sucks you didn't win the Stanley Cup, but it's not a failure. I think Leon, Connor, and the Oilers will look at it as a failure. They've had the whole year of cup or bust talk and mentality, and they've been struggling to get over that hump. They've had years where they've got swept. They've had years where they've lost in round 2. They've had years where they've lost in round 3. They haven't even made it to the Stanley Cup final as of yet. Now, that's still an option and possibility this year because, like I said, just because they're down in this series doesn't mean it couldn't happen. But to me, the whole reports about the Sharks getting involved to sign Leon, to me, it seems pretty unrealistic unless they drastically change their approach over the course of this next year and start making trades and hitting the free agent market to bring in a bunch of other talent so that this team suddenly accelerates. I don't see Leon wanting to go there. Not at this point. Could he maybe find it interesting to play there before his career is over? Maybe. But again, I'm not sure I'm buying the fact that just because he shares a nationality with the owner, that's enough to lure him there. As much as Leon, I'm sure, wants to get paid tons of money, I think winning is just as important, if not more important, to him. So I do think he'll negotiate in good faith with every intention of wanting to stay in Edmonton. It's just that much. But we did, like I said, there's been some other reports about the Boston Bruins. Now, we know that the Boston Bruins are certainly, as I recorded, is currently still in the playoffs as well. Getting ready for Game 6 actually tonight. This video won't make it to YouTube until the weekend, so the Bruins may be eliminated by the time this actually is being viewed by the audience here. But, the Boston Bruins, we know, don't have the center depth like they used to. They lost Patrice Bergeron and David Krejci, and ultimately right now, going into this past season, they were tight on cap space. They signed a lot of budget-friendly, we'll call it, players. For the most part, things have worked out for them to get through another pretty successful regular season on the backs of strong goaltending, which is an absolute, major thing for them. If you think about it, Ullmark and Swayman, if they don't have that, if they have average goaltending and not elite goaltending, that Bruins team might not be a playoff team, or they might be just barely squeaking in as a wild card team instead of being more solid in the top 3. That's my take on the Bruins. Like, they have a good team, but the whole they've changed. Like, they've had good goaltending for a long time, but this level of elite goaltending they've been getting lately is really, really good, and they're not as deep as they used to be, and it's kind of shown at times in these playoffs. So, at the end of the day, would the Boston Bruins want to land a top 6, if not top line centerman? They absolutely would. So the Bruins, in my opinion, do have the pieces to make a trade with the Oilers if things get to the point this offseason that the Oilers decide let's say they start negotiating with Leon, things are not going well, They're like, okay, his demands for his contract is too high, and at the same time, do we really want to run this back, or do we need to shake things up? Goaltending's been the Achilles heel there. The Bruins are very much rumored to be moving Linus Ullmark. Do they have some talks? Obviously Leon would be able to drive a huge return, but maybe they add to it. Maybe they move Stuart Skinner. Maybe Skinner goes to Boston with Leon to replace Ullmark, and then you get a Swayman-Skinner combo where he can be more of a backup goalie, have a different role. Maybe that would be good for him because he's also a hometown kid in Edmonton, and some people struggle with the pressure there. Maybe it would be good for him. That was a couple of pieces there. It may be a defenseman. I was looking at what a package could look like. Maybe Leon goes with maybe Skinner and, I don't know, maybe CC or Kulak or one of the, D that are not, in your top 2 or 3. Going back would be a combination of things built around Linus Ullmark. Maybe they get the rights to Jake DeBrusk. Jake DeBrusk is a pending unrestricted free agent. Depending on when this trade happened, if it happened before free agency, they could get the rights to Jake, or maybe he signs an extension with Boston to be moved with a contract. Either way, he could go to Edmonton as part of the deal. If it happened after July 1st and they're already negotiating with Leon on an extension, that'd be a different scenario. Jake would already be signed somewhere as a UFA, so could change things in that front, but that's assuming that this happened maybe at the draft, for example, before free agency gets underway. And then, of course, maybe they get one of their D back. We know, looking at their defense, obviously, maybe I'm not sure if they'd want to move a guy like Brandon Carlo, but at the end of the day, you're getting Leon Draisaitl. You're going to have to move something significant. Maybe a piece like Trent Frederick. So you'd have to end up with 3 or 4 pieces for sure. Not to mention, maybe something else. You got Linus Ullmark, a Vezina Trophy winning goaltender. You've got the rights to Jake DeBrusk, and then maybe a Brandon Carlo. That could be a good haul for the Oilers. They get themselves a good, solid defenseman on the right side. They get themselves an all-star goaltender, and they get a winger who's, he's had his inconsistencies, but for the most part, it's been pretty good, and he's got connections to Edmonton with his dad, Louis, there. So I'm sure that he would. If he had to leave Boston, I'm sure Edmonton would probably be a top destination for him. So again, not saying this is going to happen, but if things don't go well for Edmonton and they did want to make a drastic change, those are the reports on the market saying that Leon Draisaitl would, if he was going to move, Boston would be a top destination for him, or as a UFA, San Jose, which I don't get the connection. I've struggled to find that, but to hear multiple NHL connected insiders, reporters talk about that just makes me think, okay, if they've been hearing this off and on for a year, what's the allure there? What's driving Leon to want to go to San Jose? That seems to me just kind of weird, just because the owner is German. That doesn't add up to me, and the team is not anywhere near winning, which also, like I said, I think that would drive Leon crazy to take a major step back after all this battling with Edmonton to get where they are. I don't see it happening myself. I really don't. So I want to talk about the San Jose Rumours just to kind of say, in my opinion, I think there's nothing to it. I'd be shocked if that happened. But if the Oilers ever do want to make a trade, especially in the next year, I think based on the structure of the teams and the assets that can be made available and what's going to likely happen this offseason, I think Boston would be a prime destination. And I've heard Leon and Boston linkage, multiple reports of that, off and on. Nothing real serious. Nothing ever said it was getting close. Nothing of that nature. It just seemed to be, I've heard multiple times that if Leon were to be traded or signed somewhere else, that's something that would be interesting to him. We'll see. Obviously, the Bruins have a long history of being a real solid organization, being competitive year after year. You rarely ever see this team have to take a major step back and rebuild. And with the losses they've had, they've still been able to have these competitive regular season, make it to at least the second round of the playoffs. But the team they have, looking at it on paper, to me, that's pretty darn good. It's good coaching, it's good goaltending, and that makes all the difference in the world for some teams. Whereas a guy like Leon is going to be pretty keen on being competitive year after year so he can hopefully win one, if not multiple, Stanley Cups before all is said and done in his career. So let me know your thoughts on the speculation around Leon Draisaitl. Is there possible, what are the odds he leaves Edmonton? And if he does San Jose make any sense to you? It doesn't to me. Boston, on the other hand, does, and I think they have the assets to pull it off. But let me know your mock trades and your thoughts on the situation down in the comments, and we'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.